everyone, my name is Pepin. Today I'm going to explain about passive voice. I'm going to talk about what the passive voice is, how to construct passive, and why we use passive voice. In general, we tend to use the active voice. That is when a subject does an action to an object. If you look at the example here, she writes a book. She functions as a subject. Then we have the action verb writes. A book functions as an object. We use passive voice when we want to emphasize the action and the object of a sentence rather than the subject. This means that the subject is either less important than the action or that we don't know who or what the subject is. So the passive sentence becomes, a book is written by her. When we know the subject is, we put it at the end with by. We call this an agent. If you look at the second example, Jimmy bought a car. We know who bought a car, so we can change into passive. A car was bought by Jimmy. Jimmy here is the agent. How to construct passive? If we want to construct passive, we need to move the position of the object. Then we sometimes add with the word by. We add the auxiliary verb to be, and we change the verb into past participle form or verb 3. Passive voice is not a tense in English, so each tense has its own form of passive, which is created by the auxiliary verb to be and past participle. You can see the examples here from the table. For example, the present simple tense, we have the auxiliary verb to be is, am, or are. Then we add with past participle. So the sentence in passive becomes, how is the word pronounced? You can look at another example from the slides. Why we use passive? There are some reasons why we use passive voice. First, we use passive if we don't know who the agent is. For example, I don't know who did it, but my pet rabbit has been let out. So we don't know who did the action. Another reason, when it is obvious to the listener or the reader who the agent is. For example, I had been instructed to remove all the ashtrays. The next reason is when people in general are the agents. So, for example, you have the sentence here, all the Beatles records can be borrowed from the Central Library. We can also use passive to report something or to state a fact. For example, Highway 15 was closed yesterday due to a serious road accident. This is for reporting. Or the second one, A lot of corn is grown in Iowa. This is to state a fact. How to implement passive voice in IELTS? We can use passive sentence in IELTS Writing Task 1, especially when we have to write about a process of something works. Here you can see the sample questions. This is from a chocolate production. And here you can see the sample of the answer. The sample answer, for example, to begin, the cocoa comes from the cacao tree, which is grown in the South American and African continents and the country of Indonesia. Once the pods are ripe and red, they are harvested and the white cocoa beans are removed. Following a period of fermentation, they are then laid out on a large tray so they can dry under the sun. If you look at from the example, we can see that some of the sentences are in the passive form and some of the sentences are in active form. So, in brief, we can also say that we use passive voice to make a sentence variety, to make the writing as coherent as possible. I think that's all for my explanation today. So hopefully it will help. Thank you and see you next time.